Yeah, I had to fight it. And that is stage number 5, which I call, well, 4 is deepening and big breakthrough. You can do Zen meditation for it or something else. Now stage number 5 is the need for purification. So, stage number 1, awakening. Stage number 2, integration, personal integration. Stage number 3, being rooted in heaven and earth. So extension of awareness and feeling compassion with your, and the actions which are the consequence of that. Stage number 4 is going into depth. So aiming at inner breakthrough. That's allowed. And then the ego comes back sooner or later, and you have to cope with that problem. So then you have the stage of purification. Now, accidentally, I'm a fasting doctor. That is one of my specialities. I've been fasting 3.5 weeks. That is my longest time. No, not eating, 3.5 weeks. And cleansing your bowel and so on and so forth. So this is my physical foundation of purification. But then, of course, you have the psychological methods and the spiritual dimension of purification. So I've been struggling with my ego for quite some years, and being jealous of all these teachers around me, you know, claiming they have a moment of unity and immediately have all these followers around them, you know, and I'm sitting there with my too much serious attitude towards life and this kind of thing, and I'm still here with my problem, and I knew my enlightenment was 100 times bigger than theirs, you know. Yeah, so you have to think twice when you if you decide to go on the spiritual path. That is not simply you open up a little and, you know, and everything is nice and happy and so on. That former teacher, this Graf Dürkheim, was a very serious man, like many Germans, and that sometimes is very useful. From the first moment of opening up, you get a responsibility towards the new thing which is being born in your being. That is a new responsibility. It's just when you get a baby. I mean, you're still pregnant and you think, yeah, it will not be that, will not bear that many consequences, but once the baby is there, you feel it every day of your life that there is a new responsibility coming in the family, which you cannot avoid. So that is also with spiritual birth. If this new being is born, then a new mechanism starts happening. Something inside takes over with its own requirements, with its own demands, with its own joys, of course. But about the joys, many people already talk, in order to make it attractive and to attract followers and so on. And I'm not interested in followers at all. So I very easily talk about also the difficult things of the path. I think that is in everybody's interest to know that. Okay, but there is a saying, I don't know how to translate it into English, but in Dutch you say, je krijgt kruis naar kracht. You're better in German. Yeah. Du bekommst Kreuz nach Kraft. That in English would mean something like, once on the spiritual path, you get new difficulties, but you can bear them because you have a new foundation.
If a person is able to make their life become bigger,
yeah,
better,
yeah, It's a price to pay.
They're going to fight you.
There's a price to pay.
They want you to do that.
Absolutely.
And you've got to fight those to have a bigger, better life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because
there's parts of you, he's talking about parts of himself. His ego,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
parts of you are going to fight you.
yeah. And I can tell you also something which happening on the psychological level. That happens very soon already. If you open up, something comes into your space which has been suppressed until now. Call it hatred. Hatred is nicely intense, huh? So everybody knows about hatred. This is very serious, hatred. You have to, according to Jung and the analytic psychological school, you can imagine this hatred to be a complex. You have to visualize this as entity. Hate entity comes into your space. Because you have opened up, your ego control is less, so it can easily pop up. Before it was suppressed. Yeah? Once it is in your space, it starts sucking up all this light energy from your spiritual being. And it's starting blowing itself up because it becomes like a baby, sucking this energy up. So it's growing like a cancer grows into your space. For quite some time, you might not even perceive it because you're enjoying your state of being space, which is light, which is connection, which is joy, which is satisfaction, which is fulfillment. So you don't know you have this small cancer growth in yourself. I mean, you can compare it with your physical health. I mean, for a long time, you have no any idea that there is a colon cancer growing into your belly. Up to a moment that it is manifesting itself. Can you understand the parallel here? So this cancer growth of hatred is drawing the energy in itself. It's sucking the energy from its environment. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the irony is, the more light there is, also the darkness grows accordingly. You understand my point? Up to a moment that it becomes stronger than your light. And then in one night, you can have an inner...
Flip-flop.
Yeah, how do you say that?
Flip-flop.
Exactly, flip-flap. That you turned from a harmonious light being to dark. They say Adolf Hitler had such an opening when he was young. After he has attended the opera, he was with his friend, and his friend has made an account of it later, and he said Adolf was totally different after this opera. He was in heaven, and he started talking about his mission, and he was very compassionate, and blah, 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 such a story. So he had his opening up in former life. But from his past, he had a deep hatred towards his father, because his father had suppressed him his whole life. And this hatred was never be aware in a psychological sense, because at that time there were no psychologists and so on. I mean, it was the beginning of psychotherapy, and this guy was too poor to think of a therapist. I mean, there was no any idea he had to work on it. You understand? So, and that it took years to grow and grow and grow. And when he was, I think, 23 or so, he suddenly became dominated with his hatred towards the Jews. So you had that flip-flop in his life. And I think many other dictators are example of this. But not only dictators, of course. I mean, everybody is subjected to the same process.